welcome to the second of our Investment Insight series, Magellan Minutes. This series is designed to provide you with relevant and digestible talking points on global markets, each in around 10 minutes. In this series, we're going to revisit some of the conversations we had earlier this year and share our current views on the sectors and stocks in our global portfolios. We'll also ask our sector specialists what they'll be looking out for in 2021. My name is Jennifer Herbert, Key Account Manager at Magellan, and today I'll be talking to Magellan's Head of Healthcare and Portfolio Manager, John Wylie, about our thoughts around the healthcare sector. Thanks for joining us, John.
It's great to connect today, Jen.
I'm personally hoping that the vaccine will allow me to travel overseas again soon. Is it too early to get excited?
Well, Jen, the vaccine is certainly useful in providing a pathway to travel overseas without the current frictions with respect to hotel quarantine and so forth that you're faced with, certainly on the Australian leg of that journey. The role a vaccine will play here is twofold. The first pathway where the vaccine helps to assist in removing travel frictions is where local populations are able to vaccinate and thereby build herd immunity. And there is a threshold for 60 or 70% of the population to be vaccinated in order for that herd immunity to be established. And when herd immunity is established, then there is an easier path to frictionless global travel, which is everyone's dream. But the shortcut beyond achieving herd immunity would be to have clarity that the vaccine is useful in preventing asymptomatic infection. So the current vaccine trials have built very good evidence that if you get the vaccine, you're much less likely to find yourself in hospital fighting severe disease or moderate disease for that matter. But the trials didn't test whether or not you would be infected, but asymptomatic rather, even if you'd had the vaccine. And why that matters from a hotel quarantine or travel perspective is there isn't current proof that the vaccine prevents asymptomatic infection. Therefore, there's a risk that even if you've had the vaccine and you've been abroad, you could still be infected, albeit asymptomatic. So you're fine, but the population you're coming back into or visiting might not be fine to the extent that they haven't also had a dose of the vaccine. So we really need clarity on whether or not the vaccine is effective in preventing asymptomatic infection to some substantial degree. And should that clarity emerge, then a lot of the travel restrictions that are currently in place could be arguably more easily unwound with help from science. The pathway to get that evidence will leverage the existing trials, which are still currently ongoing, despite having hit that phase 3 endpoint. Of course, the studies continue for some duration going forward. And how that will work is the studies will test their blood rather, using what's known as a serology test to see if they've got antibodies that are unrelated to the vaccine. And that is reasonable evidence that patient has suffered an asymptomatic infection. And the idea will be to prove that the vaccine has significant efficacy in helping patients avoid asymptomatic infection. So we'd hope to see all of those asymptomatic infections, or significantly more of them rather, in the placebo arm of those trials. So that work is underway, and also some additional work using index case households and so forth in order to build the evidence that we'd need to have clarity on whether or not the vaccine solves for asymptomatic infection in a substantial way. And if it does, then that's incrementally better news for your question on global travel, because with infection solved, then the prerequisite for herd immunity might not be so overwhelming as a policy input into government decisions on border frictions.
Novartis remains a core healthcare holding. Can you update us on the investment considerations for this global fund position?
Sure, Jen. The key issue we have been grappling with for Novartis over the last quarter or so has been the impact of rolling lockdowns globally on how easy it is for patients to visit their physician. So from the depths of the original crisis, where patient visitation to their physician fell by over 70%, we've recovered to a point where patients are currently seeing their doctors about 10 to 20% less than they used to this time last year for certain medical conditions. The key example I'm referencing there is probably dermatology. And so because patients aren't seeing their physicians as frequently, the ability of those physicians to move their patients to new, better, more efficacious medicines is compromised. And because Novartis's primary business is bringing highly innovative new medicines to market that deliver better outcomes for patients, those patients do need to see their doctor in order to change their prescription to a new standard of care. So some of these lockdowns are frustrating Novartis's growth, but they certainly haven't frustrated Novartis's additional current revenue. It's really only a question of an adverse impact on their growth profile. And that does have some minor permanent impact on valuation. But given we seek to allocate capital with a 3 to 5 year investment horizon, looking through the short-term frictions on a patient's ability to visit their doctor is something that we're very well placed to do and very happy to do. The reason why we're very comfortable holding the Novartis position at the current price is because we think we have very conservatively modeled a number of Novartis's key therapeutic areas where growth in those therapeutic areas is going to offset patent expiries that occur in approximately 2024. And so we think we have conservative forecasts which underwrite continued growth across the whole franchise, even when those patent expiries occur. And should those conservative forecasts prove to be accurate, then we also think there is substantial unpriced option value on some of Novartis's major earlier stage pipeline assets, gene, cell, and nuclear medicine emerging opportunities, and also some latent option value for indication expansion for some of their current best-in-class assets.
How are you directing Magellan's healthcare research efforts for the year ahead?
Well, Jen, the fundamental tenet behind our universe construction for healthcare is that we would never expose any of our investors to what we would regard as binary risk, which can't be appropriately diversified at the company level. So that tenet holds true across each of the three subsectors in the healthcare world. With respect to pharma, we have a very narrow and carefully defined universe of globally diversified pharmaceutical businesses. Of course, we continue to monitor that actively, but it hasn't been a incredibly prospective path for incremental capital deployment. The healthcare infrastructure subsegment is something where we find the volume predictability to be incredibly interesting, but the quirk with that subsector, and I'm referencing businesses like HCA, which we've spoken about before, and Fresenius Medical Care in that bucket, for example. Those businesses have incredibly predictable volume post-crisis, but a significant degree of regulatory risk, and so come with relatively elevated risk metrics for that reason. So while we are very comfortable in the long-term quality of earnings for those businesses, and to some extent have got more comfortable with some of the political risk given recent developments, the decision to bring those companies back into the portfolios in meaningful size is inextricably linked to how we balance the risk considerations on those assets. And then finally, for medical devices and unique growth, which I sort of bundle together as our third major bucket, we're doing a lot of very interesting work there. It's probably the most prospective path for incremental capital deployment over a 3 to 5 year horizon, in my view. In particular, we're doing a lot of work on whether we can better access the genomic medicine revolution via some of those healthcare medical device or unique growth profile businesses.
John, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure, Jen.
And thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact one of the Magellan team and feel free to share this update with clients or colleagues as you see fit. Take care and stay well.